Today, we're talking about the cutting-edge world of ad tech and how it's reshaping your digital experience. Welcome to the ADOTAT Show, where we tear into the ad tech scene with zero sugarcoating. I'm your host, Pesach Latin, and we've got Zack Rosenberg from Qortex. This guy's turning ads into mind readers, making your digital life both spooky and efficient. Forget the fluff. We're here for the juicy details, so grab your popcorn and enjoy the ride.
Deserve to win when it matters most. Facing multi-billion-dollar bet the company litigation? No problem. That's why we're here. Troutman Amin, LLP, is a true legal powerhouse.
Welcome to the ADOTAT Show, where we dissect the ad tech world with the precision of a drunk surgeon. Today we're wading into the deep waters with Zack Rosenberg of Qortex with Q, the wizard behind ads that shadow you like a clingy ex. It's like Minority Report, but with more sass and a lot fewer Tom Cruises. Hang tight and enjoy the ride. Zack, toss the pleasantries aside and pour it out. What's shaking in your universe? Any wild pitches thrown your way that just stood there and you blinked at? Here's to hoping for the kind of surprises that feel like stumbling on a crumpled 20 in your laundry, not the sort where you wake up to find that Elon Musk is tweeting about your startup.
Well, I can tell you I'm not Tom Cruise, nor do I have any interaction with him. I can tell you that I love the Minority Report example, because I do think we're headed towards a world where things are more interactive. And you called it with surgical persistence, which I am not a doctor, which my parents are upset about. So there you go. We nailed them all at the beginning here.
Well, let's spill the tea. Let's pretend it's just you and me and no one else is listening. What's going on in your world?
What's going on in the world? So I'm busy. On vacation or in Florida with my wife and 3 children. And, that's great to get a chance to connect with them. And then beyond that, work is good. We've doubled our staff since November, and I couldn't be prouder of the work that we're doing.
So what kicked off your morning? What did Zack Rosenberg have for breakfast today? Was it a power smoothie kind of day? Are we talking a regret last night's decision kind of meal?
My regrets of last night ended a long time ago. So I would say that most nights end somewhere between 9 and 9, right before the NCAA championship game. So I woke up to that news. Usually it starts off with some eggs, typically some whole wheat toast, a yogurt, and then I'm on my way. And I say that as if I actually get to eat that most of the time. Typically it's just a handful of eggs as I'm running out the door, and then whatever I can, meander past as I'm getting the kids in the car.
So what recent event or topic has captured your attention, and what are your thoughts on it?
No end in sight to that question. Certainly there is a lot to be paying attention to, especially when you watch as much video as we do. I would say that obviously the war in Israel has caught my attention. The upcoming election has caught my attention. And how do I feel about these things? Nervousness on all fronts. How about that for a very concise answer to a very big question?
So I show in my notes that you started in live sports on social media, and then you moved to spearheading an AI analytics powerhouse. That's quite a leap. What lit the fuse for the dramatic pivot from sports fanatics to tech innovators at Qortex?
I always thought I'd work in sports. I went to college for sports management. I had the amazing privilege of working for the New York Mets for 4 years during high school and college. And that's what I always dreamed I'd be doing. So when
was this pre-World Series or post-World Series?
So this was, 1990 was my first year as an intern. So they made the playoffs in 99, when they lost to the Yankees, and then I got 2 dismal years after that. But what a time to be there. I mean, for anyone who's listening who's a Mets fan, you had Mike Piazza in the clubhouse, Edgar Alfonso, Ray Ordonez. It was a great time to be there.
Yeah, I'm from Brooklyn.
You had a lot more to celebrate during that time period. Anyway, so yes, love sports, passion for it, always thought that's where I'd be. Having previously worked for another technology company called Kiwi, now it's called Anyword, working with a lot of different media organizations, I thought there was an opportunity on social media channels that wasn't really being tapped. And that was to think of it as the primary channel and not the 3rd or 4th or 5th place to just dump your excess video. So I have a cousin who works at ESPN Radio. We teamed up and started reaching out to these very small independent sports leagues, broadcasting their games live on social media. Lo and behold, after a couple of months, we started attracting about 600 viewers a day. But because it was on social media, we made $11 a day on average. If we had 600 viewers on television, we would have had a number 1 show. Now we're on social media and we can't even afford coffee. So the pivot part was the easy part as we started to realize, hey, if we were able to integrate or find ways to bring brands into the video content, lo and behold, now we're not making $11 a day, we're making $1,000 broadcast. And so that technology started to come to fruition. I would call it mid to late 2019 and ultimately the pivot in 2022 who we are today.
What survival skills did you pick up that are paying dividends at Qortex?
Do you want the version with tears or without?
Were you tired of being the underdog, or did the thrill of chasing digital dollars lure you away?
I don't know that I've ever been so focused on the dollars of it, more the sustainability of it. But I would say, to answer that question, how to segment your phase of a startup, also how to position yourself. Those are the two things that I would say that I really took out of this journey. I often ask entrepreneurs, are you in the hour-to-hour phase, day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, quarter-to-quarter? None of us are year-to-year, although that's the aspiration. But, when you're in that hour-to-hour phase, you get an email and you're like, oh my God, I got an email. Somebody actually wants to talk to me about what I'm doing. And how to handle that differently than when you're in the quarter-to-quarter phase. And then, as I said, I think the most powerful, impactful skill that an entrepreneur can have is about how to position. You could take the exact same product to the exact same market, talk about it slightly differently, and open up a whole host of doors that you never would have gotten through before. So those would be the two big takeaways there.
What are some dragons you had to slay to keep the lights on?
Yeah, this is the part where the tears come in. Look, I think there isn't a founder who comes onto this podcast that doesn't talk about the times they ran out of money, and there were certainly plenty of times that we did. That's a big one. And of course, inevitably, as you feel like you've just started to click, is when you'd start to realize, oh no, if I'd only figured this out 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago, things would be wildly different today. I think that the pivots were obviously part of the dragon slaying, right? Realizing this isn't going to work. How else can we apply what we're doing? Where else can we find a fit for the technology we've created, or whatever the case may be? If I had to come down to one, it would be very difficult to do, but I would certainly say that, being on the heels a lot, looking for capital in the early days for absolutely where the dragon slaying came in.
It's a pretty humbling experience, everyone says. Like, was there a point where you were just like, I can't take this anymore, I want to give up, I'm being turned down too much? Or were the people just like rushing at you and throwing money?
I am definitely not smart enough to just give up and quit. I think a lot of sane, rational people would look at the opportunity and go, what are you doing? It's time. There was one moment, a story that I talked about from years ago, so as not to make people nervous, but I remember we've never missed a payroll. We've never asked anyone to take a reduction in pay or anything like that, which is incredible for a startup. But I do remember there was one morning where we were going to miss, and this person from a loan company had been calling me every day for 6 months, and I just called them until they picked up at about 4 o'clock in the morning. And I said, you want to come through for me? Today's the day. We are going to be missing a payroll by this much. I looked in QuickBooks, and it tends to withdraw from our account at like 8 in the morning. If you can get me this, you'll have a loyal customer, forever. And I think the money cleared at 8, and then it was withdrawn at 8. So moments like that become kind of regular and normal, and it almost shocks the system to think that that's a reality. But I'd say moments like that certainly rear their heads.
Was there like an aha moment when you realized Qortex wasn't just another tech startup, but a potential industry titan?
There was 2 moments in particular. There was one where we had a business meeting in Chicago that went terribly. And this was the type of meeting that we thought this product was built for. We had done everything to get into the room with this particular client because we thought they were such a perfect fit for what we're doing. And there was just yawns across the table. Just, what are you doing here?
Right.
Okay.
They didn't get it.
No. And as we tried not to throw ourselves off the bridges in Chicago, a week or 2 later, we had another meeting where the woman from the agency just stared across the table and goes, you idiots, you're doing this backwards. Do it like this, and you got yourselves a home run. My God, she's right. Doing it backwards this whole time. If we go this way, it unlocks this, this, and this. Boom. Now we've got a business. And that was the moment with this particular client who still remains with us to this day where we thought, okay, let's do it their way and see where this goes. And that's when things started to really click.
As captain of the ship of Qortex, how has your role evolved from the garage band days to the symphony it is today?
That is a fantastic question. And, I think it does go back to what I was talking about earlier about the hour to week kind of phase of your business. But I would say very early on, it's being everything from the janitor to the CEO and being humble enough, as you called it earlier, to recognize some days you're going to have the world's worst job and some days you're going to actually feel like the CEO, that I dubbed myself, right? Those days start to transition to broader teams, people who are experts in the field. You can actually take 11 minutes off and the company doesn't completely shut down. To the phase that we're in today, where I feel like my entire responsibility is to do 2 things. Repeat myself constantly. That's number one. Just repeat myself
Right.
endlessly so that nobody says there's mixed messages. Oh, I didn't hear that. Oh, how do you want me to talk about this? No, I just repeat myself constantly. And I used to apologize early on. I don't do that anymore. And now I feel it's about feeding the organization. I don't necessarily have to be in the trenches in every single conversation. How can I bring in more smart people? How can I make sure the plates are full? That's where I feel my time is best spent. So, I look forward to seeing what the phase looks like when we're 500 people and it changes, entirely different ways, but that's where I feel like I am today.
So Zach, your platform's like a sniper in the world of ad placements. How does your AI not just hit the target, but split the arrow every single time?
We should start calling it Robin Hood based on that description. So the secret sauce, if you will, is the idea that a lot of companies are running towards this idea of just contextualization. And typically when they talk about that, they're talking about it in the realm of text and page content. To do it in video is an enormous challenge and not something we see very often. So let's now move into the realm of video, which is where Qortex really plays. If you're looking at something contextually, you might identify that there's an airplane in the video. But if you go to Delta Airlines and say, hey, we want to sell you this package of 50 videos with airplanes in it, inevitably the first questions they're going to ask you are, hey, well, is that a family on their way to Disney World or something tragic happened?
A crash.
Right.
Yeah, that's my first thing is you don't want your ad on the picture, on the video of the plane crash.
Inevitably. That's exactly right. So being able to understand the distinction between these things is incredibly difficult, and that much more difficult than just identifying that there's an airplane in the video in the first place. And that's what makes our Moments technology so unique, is the ability to understand within 2 to 30 second chunks the context of that moment. I'll give you just one more example. If somebody in the video goes and you're just using some sort of transcript analysis, you have no idea if that was a goal being scored, if that was a gift being given, if that was a car crash, right? Completely different set of context just based on that one set of terms. And that's what we aim to avoid. If we can understand it in full context,
right, so how does what is the magic trick of moment level targeting? I have to ask you. What is the magic here?
The magic here is to put together multiple disparate pieces. It's not just the audio. It's not just the transcript. It's not just OCR. It's not just computer vision. It's not just sentiment analysis. You have to put all of these things together. And then with our overlays, our on-stream and video experiences, which is what we're most known for today, you have the actual interaction between the audiences and the video itself. And so that adds a whole nother element that we can bring to the table that no one else can.
Was there a surprise hit use case for your tech that you didn't see coming?
Yeah. So the underlying AI infrastructure that we had built to identify what was in the video content and then deliver the most relevant ad at the most relevant spot in it, that was never supposed to be its own standalone product. It never occurred to us, certainly early on, that people would just want the information and the data to use for their own purposes. So I would say that was one of those moments where somebody came to me after working with us for quite some time and goes, stuff you're using to figure out the video. Oh, that's obviously something we built. You have that information? Yes. Can I get that? What would you use it for? And as we started to do the customer discovery and have similar conversations with other like-minded folks, well, it became clear we had a hit on our hands.
So accuracy is king, but real-time analysis is the kingdom. How does Qortex reign supreme here? Is it all smoke and mirrors, or do you have some sort of digital crystal ball?
As I've often said to our engineers, I might have plenty of mirrors, but I am full out of smoke. So it's got to be real. And the ability to do the real-time analysis is also in phases. And so you don't always need every element to understand the full context. If you know that you are analyzing a soccer match, you don't have to look for LeBron James. It just doesn't make sense and it's a waste of time. So building the system as we did to really hone in on the type of content or the genre of content that we're watching allows us to eliminate 98 of the type of things that you would necessarily look for if it was just an open slate. And a lot of the way that infrastructure is built today is more of a monolith, where every query has to search everything in a database every single time. That makes it incredibly difficult to do live, and that's where we have an enormous advantage. The second piece is with on-stream or in-video experiences, because we are client-side technology, we don't need the content in advance in order to scan, analyze, and place our ads in the content. Nobody else, as far as we're concerned, has the capabilities of doing that. And there you go, two huge differentiations.
Peering into this crystal ball, what AI advancements are on the horizon to turbocharge Qortex further? Is a few software upgrades? Are we away from an upgrade of achieving world peace?
I hope so, but realistically, no. Not unless we get into this mode where the AI is making all the decisions on behalf of all the folks in a given state, country, or what have you. That said, no, I think we are only at the barely off the starting line when it comes to AI and its applications. Certainly here at Qortex, and I think we are ahead of most. So are we one advancement away? No. Are we one set of solutions away? No. I think this is the fun part now where we get to explore all these things as an industry at the same time. Everybody's running in their own direction. I think everybody's got a good sense of where these things are going to go. Ultimately, I think it's going to be about efficiency and specialization or customization towards an individual. Now, if I want to watch a movie catered to me with my favorite stars, I think that's a likely reality. If we want to talk about how I learn, I think that is going to be customizable towards me. And then the efficiency of it. Can I amplify my efficiency by 3, 4, 5 times? That's the world we're heading towards. Who's going to get there? Anyone's question.
What's Qortex's positioning in a privacy-first world?
We were built on that foundation of it. We started, it was apparent to us that the cookieless future was on the horizon and the world needed new and different solutions to tackle it. And that's why understanding the content at its deepest level, which is our mission, felt like the only way to truly accomplish that. So at no point have we ever collected, any personally identifiable information whatsoever. It wasn't important to us. The idea of being able to correlate again on-stream and video experience with the content itself was more than enough to be able to be deterministic in terms of what will work and what won't. I often reference this whole cookie conversation is kind of like Groundhog Day, the movie, in that I talk about it every single day, and the actual holiday in that cookies are only effective about 30% of the time. So between that, there seems like a whole world of opportunity to improve upon this technology, and I think that's what we bring to the table.
Are you looking forward to VR and AR? Are they shiny new toys?
I do think that inevitably we're going to head towards a world where those become, both ubiquitous and enough content to really support migration over there. I had an opportunity to, check out Apple's product, and I thought it was the most incredible experience that I've ever had in terms of VR. So yes, I think inevitably we are headed in that direction. I've always felt that the glasses or putting something over your eyes may not be the fastest or the best path there. Haptics, wearing gloves, being able to touch feel, kind of like Minority Report, would be a faster path as people are not as sensitive about things on their hands as they are over their head, because you can only wear the headsets for so long before it starts to either weigh on you or the content's too much or whatever the case may be. So yes, and look, once we get there, you can't stop your experience and run 30-second video ads. So we've always had in mind that our overlays, our interactive experiences would really have a home in a VR world. So we can't wait for that to happen.
How do you guys handle ad blockers?
At the moment, without an issue. At scale, I wonder, if we'll start to get on people's radars, but because our technology is more of an enablement tool, if you will, than an ad network itself, you'd have to block the publishers' ad formats. So as of now, we haven't really come across any issues. In the future, we'll see.
Well, obviously people believe what you're doing. You just pocketed $10 million, I see. What is the master plan for these millions, and how do you navigate the scaling labyrinth without hitting a dead end?
Well, I'll be careful to say I pocketed. Certainly did not, but it is a very secure set of bank accounts.
You are in Florida. I don't know. Oh, you're coming back though, right?
Only for the week. The plan is to step on the gas. It is clear in my mind, it's clear to the investors that we found, real product market fit for the on-stream in-video experiences. And with the introduction of intelligent video analytics, the tools I was talking about today, to correlate content to advertising outcomes, it's to further develop the engineering team, to build out that suite of services. But really, we haven't had much of a business side over much of our history. Coming from a sales background, BD background, I was able to carry that for a very long time. And now, obviously, we have the resources to go find the right people, which we have. We built, if anything I'm proud of in this whole journey, it's the people we've put together to build this thing.
So how do you draft all stars without breaking the bank? Is it less Moneyball or more finders keepers?
Oof, we could spend an entire session just on this. I think that the conclusion I've come to over time is that if you chase, they're the wrong people. Folks who come in this early have to understand that not everything is going to be perfect. Most things are not even going to be in place at all. And it's your responsibility to come here, use your expertise, and get us there. And I think, throughout this entire journey, whenever I've, said, this is the person I need to get, I want to get, I'll do anything to get them, it's never really panned out. But the people who have really, been thoughtful about their questions, came to us and said, here are a set of problems that I see that you've got and where I think I can be helpful. You can get creative in terms of compensation, whether that's, equity or different step ups at different points or hurdles or milestones. And I think that's what we had to do early on. But because of that, we were able to get people to want to join us. And I think the greatest sign that you're headed in the right direction is when your customers want to join you as colleagues. And I think we've been very fortunate to see that happen time and time again.
So every funding round teaches a lesson. What is the lesson that you learned from this round of funding?
Everything changed with this round of funding. Prior to this, we had done most of our fundraising, all of our fundraising on safe rounds, which allowed us still control over the board, if you will. And now we have a board. Mm-hmm. And operating within a board is a wildly different set of experiences.
Is this your first time with the board?
It is. Yeah, my first time with the board. And I'm very fortunate. I hear a lot of entrepreneurs talk about how stressful it can be, demonizing a lot of the people who are around the table with them. I find myself to be very fortunate. They are great listeners. They're great advocates. I really lucked out and hit the jackpot with the rest of our board, but it's still a completely different way of operating. If we missed our numbers, okay, we move on. Now there's, questions that need to be answered. And obviously, having to put together a full, thoughtful strategy in a way that we've never done before. It's created a lot of guardrails that I think are great, that we've never had and we've never been really held accountable to. So it's changed the dynamic completely.
So paint us a picture of Qortex in 5 years down the road. What does that horizon look like?
What I dream of 5 years from today is with every single video that's created and consumed, our technology is powering the intelligence behind it. That's where the name Qortex derives from, the part of your brain which helps in decision making. That's what we want to be for video. So whether it's our interactive in-video experiences, as I said, called on-stream, across the web, CTV, and in-game, hopefully VR one day as well, and wherever the consumer wants to interact with video content, they should be doing so through our front end. And then on the back end, the absolute understanding how audiences react to certain types of content and moments within content and objects and people and places and things. Everything that's relevant about what you're watching will be a window into who you are. And when we've really mastered that, I think the applications that we can build on top of it are endless. And while I've got a few ideas in mind, I'm very excited to see what happens in 5 years.
So on a personal level, running a trailblazing tech company isn't a walk in the park. What are some Zen secrets behind your leadership at Qortex?
Oh, this one's easy. Marry well. So, I could not have done this journey, this opportunity without the support of my wife.
Right.
Agree or disagree? I don't know.
So how do you? That could go anywhere. Like I married rich.
Well,
I didn't know where that was going. That's why I was laughing.
No. Look, she comes from the world of entertainment. She works in video at a major media company. So these dinner discussions became an absolute reality. But, I'll take that even a step further.
So she knows what you're talking about.
She does know
that has to be nice.
She certainly knows what I'm talking about, yes. And, look, we also put a plan in place for 4 years before I went full time on this. How are we going to support me without having or needing to take a salary for some time? And so, as I said, having that support system at home changed everything.
So how do you instill a Willy Wonka level of creativity among your team? Is it all golden tickets and chocolate rivers, or do you have some Oompa Loompas hidden away?
Oh, poor Violet. Having just watched the movie a couple of weeks ago. So
the new one? I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen the new one either. We sat with our boys and watched the original, which was still great. So I think my philosophy on this is that if you hire well, you can kind of keep your hands clean of a lot of the strategy and ultimately the tactics. I hope that if you have a chance to talk to many of my colleagues, over the horizon of this company, that they'll say exactly that we have the leverage and leeway to make mistakes, to try new things, to pursue what we think will be best for the business. And Zack is there to support them, along the way in whatever way that I can. So I hopefully mostly golden ticket.
Ever face planted as a leader? Care to share a teachable moment?
Oof. Let's see. Get a good set of lawyers, I think would be kind of my phase plan, especially early on.
Right.
If your wife's cousins, friends, fiancés, so-and-so does a little bit of law work and can help you put together your founding documents or agreements or whatever the case may be, no, that would be the answer to that. The problems that originate from the very beginning last throughout the entire duration of the company. And eventually you'll clean it up, but not without a lot of pain and agony.
Who's in your personal tech hall of fame, and how have they shaped your CEO playbook?
Specific to tech or just my business hall of fame? I know you asked the question that way, but
Tech hall of fame, yeah.
Tech hall of fame. There are certainly some common answers, but sorry to disappoint, but I'd have to put Elon Musk up there. I think that it's
Right.
incredible to
Why?
it is really difficult to start a company. I can't even imagine starting multiple companies and then managing multiple companies at the same time. Now, you may have an opinion or a feeling on the man one way or another, and that's not what I'm talking about.
No,
I'm
I think
truly-
he's a genius. I think he's
Yeah.
a genius in many ways. I think he's brilliant in what he does. My only problem is that, like many geniuses, they're not aware that they're not geniuses in every way.
Well, have you ever seen a sane, successful person?
No, I always think,
No.
unfortunately, of what's his name from Zappos,
Tony Hsieh. Yeah, absolutely. And
Tony Hsieh. I mean,
Brilliant.
and I always get worried that Elon Musk is going to be another Tony Hsieh.
as I said, I've never seen a sane, successful person, and could things go in 100 different ways? I mean, look, the guy deals with rocket ships. So, inevitably, there's plenty of opportunities for things to go wrong. But I do think his impact on this world's future certainly gives him a spot on that Mount Rushmore
Oh, 100%.
in multiple industries. I
So
mean,
during
it's just
crunch time,
crazy.
how do you keep your crew from mutinying or jumping ship? Is it the
By
promise
listening.
of treasure, or do you have a plank somewhere?
I find it's by listening. That
Right.
is maybe it sounds simple. I don't think that many leaders I've worked for do it particularly well. Continuing to crack the whip and just say, go figure it out is the solution I've come across most frequently in my career. But I think if you listen and try to really get to the root of a lot of people's issues, you will ultimately help them solve them or find a new route. So I think listening is my simple, obvious, but reliable answer.
So every superhero has an origin story. What's your origin story? Where did this all start for you?
Enormous credit to my parents, both of whom are entrepreneurs. My grandfathers were entrepreneurs. My great-grandfathers were entrepreneurs. Somewhere there's this sickness that runs through our veins, but both my sisters are entrepreneurs. So we have certainly all taken the leap, and it's something I'm very proud of. But yeah, my parents, my mother no longer involved, but my parents have both founded organizations that have been around for more than 40 years. I've watched them do it. I've watched them not bring home their issues every single night and build something that has stood the test of time. So yeah, absolutely where I get my inspiration.
I like to ask everyone before we go, if you could send yourself a time-traveling text message to yourself in the past, what would you tell yourself, and would you listen?
It depends at what point I was receiving it, whether or not I'd listen. But
When you started in the industry.
when I started in the industry, I think that I would have said, there are certain crowds that I would have wanted to be a part of. And, I would have maybe gone left instead of right, trying to follow peers of mine who are the same age as opposed to those who were already very successful. And so keep on that path.
The music means we are done with today's episode of the ADOTAT Show. A big thank you to our sponsors, Troutman Amin, the amazing law firm specializing in compliance, TCPA, and much more. We couldn't do this without their expertise and support. Also, a huge shout out to Diablo Media for their continued sponsorship. They're the masterminds behind performance-based marketing and customer acquisition. Stay curious, stay bold, and know more than you did yesterday.